What's up guys, and welcome back to another video. My name's Will and I make an assortment of music under the moniker Hush Child. Now, I've covered a video like this about 6 months ago when Ableton 11 was first released, but since that release I've found out so many little tricks, tips, shortcuts and even hidden features. I felt like it would be a crime if I didn't share some of those with you today. The first shortcut I want to show you is save track as default. If you've seen my videos before, you probably know that when I start a new track, it's already got this go-to effects rack on there. And this is one that I have shared in a previous video. Now let's say I wanted to start every single track whenever I hit new track with an EQ and a compressor and I don't know, a utility. Then what I would do with these things inside my effects rack, I would right click and I would save this as the default audio track. And what that means is every time I start a new track, you can see here, these are the highlighted tracks, and down here on the bottom left, it always has that effects rack there. Doesn't matter how many I make, and I can do the same with audio or MIDI tracks as well. This next one I actually found by accident, and I think it was during a tutorial that I was doing with you guys. Since then, it's been something that's been invaluable to my workflow. It does only work with audio, but let's say you're working with a collaborator or you just want to save something to mess about with later. It takes some time to find a loop point, Shift Command R, choose your export settings. Maybe you want a WAV, maybe you want an MP3, and then export it. If you just want something for later, you can take that audio and drag it straight off to the desktop and it will appear in your files. And then something that's really brilliant is if you make some edits to that. So this is my audio right now. Maybe I add a delay and a filter. Okay, so you've got your track there with apparently a delay and a moving filter on there, and you want to export that straight out to the desktop as well. So all you have to do is right click, freeze, and then flatten the track. And there it is with all your effects, and then you just do the same. So that's out in my desktop. I go to music, and I've got that frozen version of the track as well. My third tip works absolutely amazing with hi-hats. Normally, if you're working in the piano roll, you're going to set these in one by one, maybe select them, and then command click, drag them out, or command D to copy and paste them. If you want to just draw some notes in, hold the letter B, and you can draw these along. You can also draw these up and down and change the pitch. So if you've got one hi-hat with an assortment of pitches, then that's going to be really beneficial. But another thing that you can do is if you go into your preferences and you go to the bottom of record warp launch, you've got draw mode with pitch lock. So if you've got a little bit of a shaky hand like I do, this means that when you hold that B to draw in whatever one you selected first, even if I go up and down, it's not going to go to the next key. So I can just draw a nice straight line there. The command buttons also change the grid size, which if you think about it is going to change how the B button performs. So if I press command 1 and then hold B, it draws these tiny little notes in there. Command 2, I'm going to get a bigger grid. Command 3, so I can put triplets in here, which is really helpful. But what's really cool is if I go to command 4 and I hit B, it doesn't draw out notes, it automatically lets me drag out a note, which could be really handy if you're working with more of a melodic instrument. This next tip is something that I don't see people use that often within Ableton, and that's using key mappings. See, if you use Command K, it brings up this orange hue to all of the buttons, and that means that you can map the QWERTY keyboard with Ableton. And something that I've got used to through using different DAWs is R for record. So all I have to do is hit this record arm button and hit the letter R and then Command K again. And every time I hit that letter R, I get the count in, it starts recording. This next one is something that I use all the time in almost every one of my videos. So you've probably heard it by now, but that's Command T or Shift Command T. That's going to give you a MIDI track, and that's going to stop you having to right click, insert audio track, insert MIDI track. But that's not the real tip here. The real tip is when we go Shift Command T to get a new MIDI track. And then we want to create a sampler track or a simpler track. Now, normally you would go up to the sidebar find simpler sampler, drag and drop it into this MIDI tab. You don't have to. Ableton makes it easier for you. So if you've got a sample that you want to use, I'm going to drag this Cara one in, drag it straight to your MIDI instrument, and there it is ready to use. If you want to change this to sampler, then just right click the top of the tab and then just go simpler to sampler. This next one I've kept written down to remind myself to use, but it's Shift Command D when you select an area. How many of us have gone, right, well, I want this section to go for longer. I need to move everything else across to make way for this. And then I copy and paste this section, Command D to shift it over. You don't actually have to do that. If you just select the area that you want to play in the next section and then do Shift Command D, it will create that space for you and then move everything else in your track along. If I wanted just this little section here, Shift Command D, and it's just going to keep plugging that in and shifting everything else along. Let's say you're just noodling about, nothing's recording over the track. And you really felt the vibe of that for some reason, and you wanted to capture it. If you just press Shift Command C, it's actually already captured that in the background for you. I don't think I'll be keeping that one, but still, it's a good tip. My next few tips are actually on the fairly secret side, so if you've made it this far, I'm glad you've stuck around. We actually need to open our options text file, and if you haven't created one, don't worry, I'll show you where to find it. So I apologize if you're on Windows, but Google's your friend as to where to find the preferences folder. What you want to do is you want to go to your library folder and you want to head to preferences, Ableton, and then you want to find both your oldest Ableton 11 folder and your newest Ableton 11 folder. So just 11 to 11.06 for me, and whatever the latest number is for you. If you haven't got an options.txt folder, you can just create one from a text edit document, and you're going to file save that as an options.txt with a capital O. And then double clicking in that option, I've already got this one. It's called Enable ARM on Selection. It's written in there because I've covered it in a previous video. But basically what that allows me to do is, like other DAWs, when I just select the track, it's already armed. I didn't like having to select a track, then hit record ARM. I would continuously select a track, hit the global record button, and then start playing, and I wouldn't be recording anything. So with this option, it just allows you to go from track to track, and it always record arms that track that is selected. If I turn it off and go track to track, then it will no longer do that. This next one's really cool. I'm going to go back to my options.txt. I'm going to create a new line, and I'm just going to write in dash show device slots with a capital S, D, and S. And what show device slots allows you to do, by the way, when you're writing these in, you have to close down Ableton, you have to reopen it. So what show device slots allows you to do is, like other DAWs like Logic, it allows you to replicate the channel strip that you get with your effects in it. So if I open session view or clip view in this project, you can see down here, I've got this little plugin icon now. And when I click that, it gives me all of the devices that I'm using, and I can arm and unarm these effects, which is super, super handy. I like this one a lot. I don't know why it was turned off by default. Another one of the things that I wish I knew when things started out was how easy it was to get your music on all the streaming services. And that's why I use DistroKid, because I really do believe they make it the easiest way possible. And we're talking about some really nerdy, geeky stuff today, and you can do some pretty geeky stuff with DistroKid. If you head over to the bank option and you wanted to see your entire breakdown of all the money you've made from each track in excruciating detail, they have an excruciating detail button. When you hit that button, you'll get an entire breakdown of your discography, what country it was sold in, how many units by month, by day, and to what decimal point you made money on that song. I check it out every now and then, and it's always super eye-opening. So something people forget about the EQ is that when you're looking at a track, let me just play something here. I've got like a piano here. It's kind of dull, it's kind of quiet. It's fine. It will suit the purpose of today's video. Is you can go over to the mode here, and on the right-hand side, you've got the options for left and right, and mid side, and people forget to EQ their mid side. So that's allowing you to EQ your mono and your stereo frequencies. So if you do this correctly, you should get a wider, cleaner mix. So to do that, like I said, you just hit that mode and then MS. So we're in M right now. And then if we go edit and hit S, then we can EQ this differently. So we really are able to fine tune and tweak our EQ. And if you haven't done it already, as I've shown before, you should right click the top of the bar and turn over sampling on. It basically means that you can EQ within fine detail. The EQ8 really is brilliant, especially if you haven't got any other plugins, you can't afford them, whatever. There's a lot you can do with the EQ8. So this is a section of my song Days, and you can see how I crafted this through my Eevee video. But something that I've been doing more recently is just trialing sections of my song to see what I want to put next. So if I put that into context, you've created 3 parts of your song. You've maybe A, B, and C. And you're not really sure what section fits where, whether you want A at the front or A at the back, maybe B should go first, so on and so forth. Not sure if you know this, but Ableton's quite intelligent. Now I haven't got all day, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a resampling track. I've shown you guys how to do that before. And I'm going to turn this up really quite fast. And I'm just going to hit record. So I've got through that section really quickly, and I'm just going to put it back to normal. Now, it's not going to sound exactly the same, but it does keep a lot of its musical value intact. So listen to this. Now you might be thinking, Will, why would you show me that? It sounds rubbish. The reason why I do this is I press Command E and I chop this in half. And if I want to trial 2 sections of the song, what I can do is just grab this section and go over to the session view. I'm going to choose a new area. I may as well choose that like resample section that we just set up. I'll choose this area here. I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to put it underneath that. What I can now do is shift, select and right click and do create a follow action chain. It allows me to listen to this one and then this next one straight after. So now I can quickly go through those and go, right, what would sound best first, second or third? I figure it out and then I can go back to my arrange page and make those changes. You don't have to do it like this, of course. If you've got your sections of your song, you want to hear it properly, then I would suggest just dropping your samples in here, dropping your sections in here. But again, right click and create a follow action chain. If you want to hear those clips on their own, all you have to do is hit this button here, turn it off, and it will take those samples out of the chain. We rattled through them today, guys. I hope you found it helpful. These are just some of the things that I wish I'd known when I first started using Ableton 11, and now I've got to grips with it. There's many little shortcuts that I probably take for granted and gloss over within my videos. So I wanted to just culminate all of them and pop it into one quick video. If there's any tips that I missed and you want to help out the community and other creators, then please leave it in the comments below. Don't forget that we've got our bi-weekly beat battle coming up this Sunday as well, where we're giving away probably the biggest prize yet. We've hooked up with Slate Digital. They're going to give this week's winner a year's worth of the all access pass to Slate Digital. That means you get Kilo Hearts bundles. You also get their entire analog selection, lessons. There's a whole bunch on there. I already use Slate Digital. I'm already a fan. So just shout out to Slate Digital, and I hope that you guys can take part. That's it for this week, guys. As always, I thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.